Today on The Nightlife, Combat and Tactics, Volume 5. Welcome back to The Nightlife and another episode in our ongoing series about combat and tactics for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition game. We're going to go around the horn real quick and make sure we get everyone's introductions. I am Derik, the Game Master of the Knights of Last Call. I am joined by Bob, who plays...
Azius.
And who is Azius?
Azius is a dwarf barbarian alchemist.
Alchemist? What do you mean alchemist?
He drinks.
Oh, okay. Nice. We also have Nick.
How you doing?
Nick, what about you? What are you playing in the Knights AP these days?
I'm a champion, a human champion paladin.
Nice, nice. And Tim?
I play Gwildor Stormcaller, the Dwarven Wizard Detective.
Yeah, but you have a little bit of extra thing. What's your free archetype?
I'm a little bit of an archer.
Yeah, pretty cool. And
oh, yeah.
Potentially we are even thinking of maybe doing a sort of a rebuild, depending on what some of the Magus options shake out to be, right? We haven't really fully explored the multi-class archetypes of the Magus, but it's possible that may end up working out really well for your character.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what I want to play all the time anyway, is some kind of a Gish, and the Magus is that incarnate, so bring it on. Exactly.
And lastly, Matt.
Yes. I thought you were going to, I thought there was a little more than that. Hi, I'm Matt, and I play Burlington, and he is a gnome sorcerer.
Is he also a coat factory?
Yeah.
Well, no saucing around today on combat and tactics. So today on combat and tactics, we are going to talk about something that happens in every single combat. It happens in every single one, and it's very important, and how you use it can have a dramatic effect on your battles and on your games. So today we are going to talk about initiative. So are you guys ready to talk about initiative?
I delayed it, Tim.
I'm ready.
All right.
I quit.
Right.
You surrender. Get out of here.
All right. Well, so for starters, let's talk about initiative, right? So initiative is rolled whenever the game master feels that the mode of play that you are in, usually exploration mode, which is sort of a more free-form, loosey-goosey mode, needs to be itemized into each individual character's turns, where each character gets 3 actions.
So when it goes from something super exciting to a dice adding boringness.
Yeah, the process of rolling initiative, I'm not a huge fan of. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but first things first for rolling initiative, it could be a variety of things. It could be perception, it could be athletics, it could be...
Yeah, people don't use that enough, I think, in PF2.
I agree.
People, it's default to perception, but it can be athletics, kicking open a door.
Right.
Stealth, for sure, stealth's probably a common one to
I would
use.
think stealth is probably the second most common one used after perception, but technically anything in the game, because it all follows the same, right, level plus your proficiency plus your bonuses, you could technically use your attack roll for initiative. I don't know how that would come up, but, you know, it is.
You just got to convince your GM.
Now, the reason why this is kind of silly is because, you know, if you go first, I mean, you're not going more times than your opponent, right? You're still only going to get 1 action per turn. So rolling high on your initiative means that you are going to go first in the initiative. We're bad at that.
Yeah, I mean, you could die, your bad guy could die before they go.
Well, right. I actually, think about one time when we were playing Magic, and, Derik was telling me why I should play first instead of draw first. And he said, because you win on your turn, Tim.
That is true.
And you know what? If you go first, indeed, that's true too. You win on your turn.
Yeah. So
very rarely are you going to win when the monster goes.
Unless you kill him on an attack of opportunity.
Yeah,
right. Or a dot.
And in baseball, you put your better hitters earlier because they're more likely to get more at-bats.
Right. Absolutely.
And so, okay, you know what? You've changed my mind. Because I will say this. A Pathfinder 2 fight, for the most part, is, in my experience, around 3 to 5 rounds long. And even if it's not exactly over at that 3rd round, it's really over. Like, you might have a couple cleanup rounds, but the threat of the monsters is ended. You were fighting 2 monsters, and the one is dead, and the other one is slowed too. And yeah, he's not technically dead yet. You still have to kill him or polish him off. But
you guys are dead.
That's what I was going to say. The threat of the monsters or your own threat.
So to that end, if let's say everybody in the party went first because they rolled really high on their perception checks or their initiative rolls, I should say, and the monsters went second, then if you went, then the monsters went, then you went, and then the monsters went, and then you went, and you won essentially the fight. You've gone 3 times, and they've only gone twice.
Yep, absolutely.
And that is 33% more right, actions.
Yep.
Right. You know, oh no, it's 50% more actions. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because you will have taken 9 actions and they will have only taken 6. That is huge. I don't know what the math is.
Yeah, and I mean, like the same thing when we were playing with our baseball league, we're looking at like the player who bats first, second, third versus the player who bats ninth. Let's assume they're the same
50% more. I was right. Okay.
The same skill in batting. It's like, well, just on average, they get that many more at bats because the game just happens to end, you know, after the 5th batter, you know, their 4th rotation, and so you just get significantly fewer at bats.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think that is actually a really interesting point, that if you know, the longer a combat goes, certainly the less important it is who went first or second. Like if the combat went 8 rounds, you know, if you went 8 times, they went 7 times, that's not that much of a difference. But if you went 3 times or 4 times and they only went 2 times or 3 times, I think that could make a really big difference.
It's that Zerg mentality.
Yeah, I think that actually is a good point. But manipulating initiative is, I think, really important as well. And I think one of the common mistakes that I see people make is going first is great. There are certainly instances where going first, I think, is very important. You know, Burl has Fireball. And at the beginning of the fight, your side is over here. You know, Team Good is on the, you know, on this side of the fight. And, you know, Team Evil is on this side of the fight, and it's much more likely that you are going to be able to catch a bunch of people inside of a fireball and not any of your party members by, you know, blasting them from, you know, from over here. And I think that is definitely, you know, a good reason why you would want to go first.
Yeah, for sure.
Same thing with Gwildor. Right, you have a variety of spells that you would probably want to be able to lead the fight with.
Right, yeah, you know, several buffs for party members. Like I got Stone Skin. I know Azius is going in as soon as he can. You know, give him a little defenses, or you know, slow the enemy, or you know, lots of there's a lot of options that I can go for Sphere. But you know, and that brings us to a good reason to delay.
That's correct. Yeah, and so Tim, that was a nice segue, Tim. So I think the biggest thing that you have to understand about the initiative order is the way that buffs and debuffs work in the context of the game. So if we use our example here, let's say that we've got this monster here and in the middle of the party, and our wizard is going to, you know, we'll pick Burl because Burl has a good charisma. So Burl the sorcerer is going to demoralize this monster. He's going to use his intimidation check to demoralize the monster, and he's going to put a frightened 1 on him, or a frightened 2 maybe if he succeeds, but more likely a frightened 1. So that's great. It's going to give the creature a -1 status penalty to all of its attack rolls and all of its armor classes, all of its DCs, its saving throws. It's going to be a very prime target. So Burl, he went first.
Awesome.
He rolled really high in his initiative. Awesome. So the first thing he does, he goes, I'm going to demoralize him. So he demoralizes him. Great. And then the monster goes next.
Oh, not good anymore.
Now, yes, the monster is going to get a -1 penalty to his attack rolls on that turn. But at the end of the monster's turn, frightened 1 is going to go, it's going to fall off.
And then my Yo Mama joke was all for naught.
Right.
That's right.
So the creature,
But I need him to be debuffed because I need to hit him.
Yeah.
So what do I do in that case?
Well, in that case, I'll answer your question in a second, but I think Bob hinted at something else, which is a general topic of strategy for Pathfinder 2. Do whatever you can do to crit.
Yes.
Right? Critting is literally doubling your action efficiency, because when you crit, you do twice as much damage. And I would argue maybe even better, because you do twice as much damage and you get additional rider effects with your critical specialization or
your higher levels.
With your higher levels that you can't get. So a critical hit is actually more useful than just 2 hits.
Yep.
Because if the creature has resistance, you're going to punch through that. If you trigger a knockdown or a trip or something like that with your weapon, you're going to get that. So criticaling is the most important thing. And the way you do that is by putting buffs on yourself and debuffs on your enemies. So Burl, you've demoralized the enemy, and now he gets to go, and now his debuff is over. So the better thing, and then the party goes.
Yeah.
The better thing might be to do, now this doesn't without risk, you have to be smart about this, but Burl can choose on his turn as a free action to delay. And when you delay, you sort of remove yourself from the initiative order. Now, any effects that would happen at the start of your turn or the end of your turn still occur. You can't like use it to make a buff last longer.
And you don't get your reaction if it's the first time.
Yes,
right?
if you are delayed.
Reaction, what's that?
Right. You have to be, you have to be in the initiative order in order to have a reaction. So if you are delaying, you do not have the ability to do a reaction. But when you are delaying at the end of any creature's turn, you may re-enter the initiative order and then take your turn. So if in this instance, if our Burl sorcerer here says, I go first, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to delay. I'm going to let this guy go first. Now the monster goes, he comes up and he makes his attack and he does what he does. Now Burl goes, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go before anyone else in my party goes. Now I'm going to demoralize this enemy. Now Burl demoralizes him with his first action, casts a spell on him with his second action. Now the rest of the party goes, and the melee characters come in here, and they set him up on these flanks, and they just start wailing into him.
Yeah, buddy.
Because now he's frightened, -1 status penalty to armor class, -1 penalty to all of his saves for the entire party's turn.
Yeah, until he goes again.
And then when he goes again, now it's his turn. He still has a -1 penalty to attack.
End of turn.
End of his turn.
Yeah.
And then finally, it ends. And I should also point that now that means also he's going to be frightened on his turn. So if he were to, let's say, decide, I need to get out of here, I need to move away, that provokes an attack of opportunity from you. He's still frightened because it doesn't go away till the end of his turn. And this is true for a lot of effects. If the creature was sickened and, he can spend actions to retch in order to remove the sickened condition. Well, ideally, you wouldn't even give the creature that option to retch until at least everyone in your party has had a chance to sort of take advantage of his sickened condition. And so delaying can be a tremendously powerful effect for putting debuffs onto enemies. Because what you want to do, ideally, is put a debuff on an enemy, okay? Then the rest of your party members go.
Yeah.
Immediately afterwards, right? Because you don't want to give that enemy time to shake off the debuff. Most debuffs end on the creature's turn or at the end of the creature's turn. So especially frightened and sickened, those are the two most common debuffs. So you really want to take advantage of that. The other thing about delaying can do is let's change it up a little bit. Let's take this this dwarven warrior guy here. Well, he goes first. Now, if this dwarven warrior goes in, he's going to have to spend an action or maybe two to get into combat and melee. And then he's very close now to all these monsters who might be able to enter into melee with just a single stride action. By delaying, he's going to let this monster engage him first.
Let them come to you.
He's had to blow an action in order to close the distance. Now, when the Dwarven Warrior's turn comes up, he has all three of his actions to do whatever he wants to do. Raise a shield and attack and demoralize. Whereas before, he would have wasted 2 actions moving. And now, if these enemies want to get into combat, they're the ones that are going to have to burn 2 actions in order to stride.
Now, that's only if you're thinking they're melee martial characters. Because if not, you better get on them.
And that is that's a really good point. And I will say this though, overwhelmingly, the party in a Pathfinder 2 game has a ranged advantage, right? Because most creatures that you fight don't have a ranged attack. If they do, it's very poor. There's a lot of creatures in the game that are basically big, scary fantasy versions of animals. Right? Claws and teeth and talons and tentacles, but no bows and arrows, right? Also, the party members tend to have, you might fight spellcasters in the game, but when you have spellcasters in your party, you have spellcasters on your side every fight because you always have spellcasters, right? True. So if the enemy goes, we're not going to close the distance. We're going to stay back here. We'll make you burn the actions. That's when lightning bolts and fireballs.
And then the fighters just pull out their bows. It's not like they're bad at ranged.
Exactly. So the party members almost always have ranged advantage. Almost always, especially when you have spellcasters capable of casting the big spells. Now, you're right. There may be situations where, that's a dangerous person. That's a spellcaster capable of casting lightning bolt
to our whole party and kill us all.
We should probably close in on that person quickly. I mean, none of these rules are ever, hard and fast, but I do think that there's an action economy advantage to be gained by delaying because you are going to enable that character or that monster to waste their actions closing to you. Additionally, if I move into this fight and I attack this person here, I'm just asking myself to be surrounded and flanked. I'm away from my party. If I go down, it's going to be hard for them to reach me and to offer me assistance and succor. I'm just putting myself, this just doesn't look like, and again, this varies from table to table, but I like to keep the initiative public order public. And I think it's important that you do this because I think the party members should be able to plan their tactics accordingly. And if I know that I'm going and then my buddy's going and then my other buddy's coming, okay, maybe I do take that action. But if I know that I'm going to go and then all the enemies are going to go, no. Like that could be lights out for my character. I'm going to end up flanked immediately, right? And then I'm in real trouble. Whereas if I delay and I let this person come into me, then we can kind of do the opposite and we can flank them. Because moving isn't exciting. You're burning an action, right? In order to be able to use your attacks. So every time you have to move, you know.
I was thinking of a very critical one that we had during our AP where the guy was in a hallway and I moved in to attack him and none of our other party could really even get to him because we're in this 5-foot hallway that no one can pass through.
Sure. He was in a bottleneck. Yeah. And you've engaged him.
Yeah. Instead of letting him come to the party, which we were all in this huge open area that could have flanked him and all this cool stuff. No. I decided to charge in. And I was a noob at the time. Much better now. Yes. But that's another thing when I could have delayed. Actually, let him come to us.
Actually, it was a fight versus Corvus.
Yeah, I see him in it.
The goblin mutant.
Yeah, he almost killed us all.
Yeah, and so, but Bob is basically describing is it's like essentially like this monster was, kind of in a doorway, basically.
Yeah.
And Bob was like, I'm going to go. Now, normally the monster was going to have to, enter the room.
Yeah.
And then, he could be surrounded by his party members and attacked on all sides because he's outnumbered 4-1.
Yeah.
But instead, Bob basted him up right here in the doorway and no one else could get to the monster. And then all this, and all of your party's range attacks, he had cover from your own person.
It was really bad.
It was really horrible. and the party, and you guys almost died.
We had to use hero points to stand up.
Yeah, you had to use hero points to stabilize.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't to be cool and
we were in bad shape.
Yeah, they had to use hero points there.
So that's another reason that I think delaying then, even maybe not delaying, using actions to let him come to me, not charging into battle, but delaying would have worked great in that scenario too.
Yeah. So again, just because you went first and you're like, I got to get in there. Right.
Hulk smash.
Right. Hulk smash. And you weren't raging yet though. So, yeah. So, I think delaying can be really, really important. It's also sometimes important. I just want to see what's going to happen. I don't know.
More information.
I don't know enough yet. It's my character's turn, but especially if it's not a question of me delaying to the monster, it might be me delaying and deferring to another party member, right? Like I know that the ranger is going to start off with a hunt prey and is going to make a free recall knowledge check.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I just delay to the ranger to get that information?
Burl likes to enlarge me also, and I almost always delay till after Burl enlarges me.
Or Tim likes to haste you.
Yeah. I should not be going first. I should be waiting for buffs on me or debuffs on the enemy.
Right. Because like the other worst case scenario, right? Some of these spells have pretty short ranges.
Yeah.
Bob might charge across the battlefield and then you're like, oh, I was going to do something.
Get back here.
Yeah. I can't help you, because you're far away. And this is where team play comes into effect. But, if it's a question of within your own team, you can definitely figure out a better way to go. And I think letting your spellcasters go first is almost invariably.
Oh yeah.
We don't really have any of these in our party, but another reason would be, we talked about it a little bit there, with your ranged party members. Let them take the shots first so that there's no cover, there's no, problems with that. Let them go first and, find the people and or shoot the people without having to worry about shooting you and having cover.
And that's where too, like where you mentioned waiting for the other party members to make their moves. I know with like a paladin, I have certain reactions that'll come into play, but I have to be certain distances with them in order for those to take effect. So I know, okay.
Also, you need to have a turn to get a reaction.
Well, right, but Burl's I know is going to move because he can't hit the enemies from his vantage point, right? So he's going to move away because we're probably all traveling together, and he's going to move away. Gwildor's going to do the same thing. They're going to try to go someplace different to try and get a better shot. Well, if I move first, I may not know where they're going to go, where they're going to want to take that shot, what spell they're going to use.
How you going to protect them.
Right. So now if I see where they go, I can try and better position myself to potentially be able to block their block attacks to them, and then also find hopefully a happy medium where I can protect them and maybe even strike back against the enemies as well.
Yeah. So manipulating initiative order can be hugely important, and delay is arguably one of the best ways to do this. And this is a big deal for Pathfinder 2 if you're coming here from 5th edition, because they do not have delay in 5th edition. They had it in 3rd edition. I think they had it in 4th edition.
Yeah. Well, we did it in 4th edition. I guess I'm not certain.
And they definitely had it. They definitely had it in 1st edition Pathfinder. 5th edition D&D does not have this delay action. So if you go first, if you roll the highest initiative, you have to go first. It's very weird. I don't know why they didn't include it. Probably because it's a little confusing, but it can be tremendously useful, again, for controlling the debuffs and the buffs and for optimizing your party's, actions and use of actions in order to sort of make sure that you're going to get the best bang for your bucks. If you know that Tim is going to aid you and buff you with his 3 actions, why not just delay, get that benefit, and then go do what you need to go do?
100%.
So that is delay. Now, our second tip is the other initiative action, which is ready.
Yes.
So we'll go over the rules text, but ready takes 2 actions on your turn. So it is not action efficient because it takes 2 actions on your turn and it lets you prepare 1 action that you can use when a certain triggering condition is met as a reaction on someone else's turn.
Can I use 3 actions to prepare a 2-action move?
You cannot. Oh. So one of the things
running the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I break this?
I will say, I don't think that would be the worst rule in the game.
Okay.
I think that actually
spending my whole turn to get a 2-action spell.
The best example of that would be I want to wait. I want to ready to cast a spell.
I want to wait for them to turn the corner before I launch my fireball.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's actually perfectly reasonable. Now, granted, remember, I see a lot of times where people ready, and it really could have almost been just the same as if they had delayed, and you're just burning an action, right? You're wasting an action.
Yeah, like you said, I'm ready for them to come into melee with me.
Right.
And it's like, no, just delay instead.
That's the best example.
Let them walk up to you.
Right.
Yeah, and then after their turn is done.
Don't spend 2 actions to wait for them.
Unless you want to do a reaction.
Attack them when they get there.
Unless you want to do a reaction upon them arriving right in front of you, as opposed to letting them arrive in front of you, take their
if you
turn.
have like something very specific. Yeah.
And that's my point. If it's just a generic, I just want to attack them, why just delay?
Right.
Yeah, that's when you're like springing a surprise or like something special is happening now. You walked up on me, I tripped you, and now you're turning.
So this is probably one of the best examples I can give of, and we've done this before on the actual play, of a ready. And the best example of this is there's 2 characters. They both want to flank this character, but I want to be able to attack on the flank. So in this instance, this character can spend 1 action and move to here. Now, this is the trade-off that we get for playing a turn-based game, right? Obviously, in real life, this would not be an issue, but we play a turn-based game. Now, Azius here, the barbarian, he wants to attack on the flank, and he wants to set up a flank for his.
I want to crit.
Right, for his ally. So he moves to here with his first action. Now, he could have just now attack. You could attack twice.
Absolutely.
But you would not be flanking this guy.
Correct.
Now, this may be a situation where maybe you really want to flank because you have sneak attack or because you really want this creature's armor class to be as low as possible.
It might be a little high.
And you are willing to burn 2 actions to instead say, I am going to ready to attack when my ally flanks with me. Your turn is over. You now have this readied action in the can, ready to go. Now your ally takes their turn. They move with their first action to here. You're now flanking the creature. It is flat-footed. Its armor class drops by 2. Your readied action goes off.
So that was the trigger.
That's the trigger.
When he flanks, I attack.
Right. And now you get to make that attack with the bonus, or I should say the monster has the penalty, and your ally now gets to make their 2 attacks. Okay.
How does map attack work? How does multiple attack penalty work with that?
So the way multiple attack, there is a kind of a weird rule. This is the weirdest rule.
This might get confusing.
Okay. If you ready on your turn, your multiple attack penalty resets to 0 at the end of your turn. This is why when you make an attack of opportunity or you use standstill or you use retributive strike, if you're a champion, that it's at your full bonus. There's no penalty. If you ready, your multiple attack penalty does not reset.
That's what I was wondering. If I striked and then I readied, I'm actually at -5.
You are at -5.
Okay.
Now, granted, that might still be a situation, but it's an important thing to note here is you've set up the flank and this character is still going to get to make 2 attacks.
Yep.
Just like anything else. And they're going to be flanked. They're going to get the flanking, bonus, or the monster is going to have the flanking penalty for all those attacks. So This is the barbarian, giant instinct. And this is the dwarf fighter with a one-handed weapon. Who should have readied?
The other one.
Exactly.
He could have tripped him.
Well,
No, just because he's going to do less damage because he has a one-handed weapon.
exactly.
Oh, I see.
So
what
he
you're saying.
should have
Yeah, yeah.
less attacks than the DPS who has the higher chance to crit
Very
and
true.
hit.
Exactly, Tim. So what we should have done is
Delayed.
Azius delays, then the dwarf warrior comes over, readies, then Azius gets to go. The person who readied makes one attack.
Can he ready a trip?
Sure. It's one action.
So he can ready a trip, because that'd be even.
Well, trip
Well,
attack.
flat-footed is flat-footed.
Yeah, flat-footed.
Okay, yeah, in that
flat-footed
respect.
is flat-footed, number one, so it doesn't stack. Number two, right, if you're tripped, you're flat-footed. If you're flanked, you're flat-footed. They don't
Yeah.
stack. Number two, trip goes against reflex DC. Being flanked does not decrease your reflex DC.
Okay.
So
doesn't
it
matter that much.
wouldn't really matter that much.
Yeah, it's just
But-
that you might be able to waste an action.
Well,
on his
yes,
understanding,
I mean,
but that's
obviously,
just-
but it wouldn't affect the math of it
Correct,
at all.
correct, correct.
Thanks, Bob, for confusing us.
I have a lot of questions.
My point is that when Bob moves into the flank, Bob is the character with the big hammer, the two-handed weapon, the DPS, the giant instinct barbarian build. Give him the 2 attacks and let the character who only is doing D6 plus 4 damage or D6 plus 6 damage be the one that only makes 1 attack. They're being more of a support role
Yeah, that makes
anyways,
sense.
right?
That makes sense.
So the character who you want to be getting the flank bonus to is, that character. They can ready anything that could be one action. So it could be a trip. It could be a shove.
A grab.
It could be a grab.
Fall prone.
It could be fall prone.
And that's my reaction.
And I would say most of the time it's probably going to be a strike. Now keep in mind too, when we're talking about who should be readying, right? If your character has a really good reaction, okay, let's flip it back around. Let's say that this dwarf warrior was actually Escanor the Paladin. Well, Escanor the Paladin probably wants to use their retributive strike, and that's a reaction.
Right.
So if he's readying and he's using that ready just to strike, you're losing that.
Wait a second. So you ready for an action, but it takes your reaction.
It is your-
slot.
it is your reaction.
Okay.
Because you're reacting
But it's
to
not
the trigger.
but it's not reacting as the map doesn't reset.
Correct.
For that reaction. Okay.
Right.
All right. Well,
That's what was throwing me off. Sorry.
imagine a scenario where we have a hallway and there's a goblin at the end,
Okay.
and I'm fighting the goblin,
Okay.
and I ready.
Well, I was like,
Yeah, why imagine it? Let's build it.
Let's build it. All right. So we got a hallway.
I hope this scenario is going to be sweet.
Oh, it's gonna be sweet.
How long is the hallway?
That many squares.
Exactly the number of squares you had.
Okay. Now what's going on here?
So I'm fighting this guy,
Okay.
and as soon as roll initiative, I go first. He goes.
Yep.
I ready.
Wait. You roll initiative.
Yeah.
Who won?
I did.
Okay.
I go first,
Burl won.
and I ready.
Yes.
Until he attacks me.
Okay.
But then on his turn, he readies until I attack him.
Great.
Are we stuck in place?
No.
Like the weeping angels?
No,
just
no.
staring at each other?
No. So that's a great question. So all ready does is you burn 2 actions on your turn to prepare a reaction, right? And just like an attack of opportunity doesn't change your initiative order. If that trigger doesn't happen, your initiative order doesn't change.
You've basically
Delay-
created a custom reaction.
Yeah, you've created a custom use one-time reaction, and it costs you 2 actions to do it.
And you can use it until the beginning of your next turn.
You can use it till the beginning of your next turn. At the beginning of your next turn, if that didn't happen, it's lost. And so delay.
So what does that look like?
Well,
It's gonna be like,
you know what a best example of it is? It's like an Old West gunfight. And the character who goes first goes, I'm going to ready to shoot my gun when he goes for his gun. And the other person does the same thing.
Yeah.
all right,
You
well,
just
what if
stand there the
Who's gonna
whole
draw
time.
first?
what if
Yeah.
I delay until after his turn and he delays until after my turn?
Well, if you both delay, that's a great question. So if you both delay, then both of you are not in initiative order, right? And then
Time travel?
if you get to the end of the round, the character who goes first has the option to go last. And then if you don't, you both just lose your turn.
So what does that mean? Are you guys just still standing
I
around?
guess you just talk it out at that
just
point.
standing
You've
just
chosen
standing
to
there.
not
I
fight.
feel like
How's your
initiative
diplomacy
is,
skills?
So
initiative's done.
yeah, and so I mean that's important. Delay actually does change your initiative order, whereas ready does not. It simply just gives you a custom reaction that you can build.
That will expire at your next turn.
Doesn't
Which-
going unconscious also change your initiative order?
Oh,
too?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if you do go unconscious, your initiative order changes to go right before the creature that knocked you unconscious.
Yep, that's what I thought.
That's some bullshit.
And another important thing to note about readying is that while it gives you a reaction, that's not the only reaction you're allowed to use. You can still use any of your normal reactions.
That's true.
Because they're reactions. As long as you have a reaction available, you can use any reaction you have.
Yeah, so Bob, if you're ready to do something, and then
you can still only use one, but they're all available
so
to be
for example,
I see.
Villic had standstill, but he could still have readied an attack when Azius would move to flank him.
And just chose not to use that.
If a monster walked past him first, he could decide to use his reaction for
that is something I did
standstill
not know.
instead.
That's great.
Another
actually.
thing that's important to note is ready has the concentrate tag.
Oh, great. So you can't do it while raging.
You cannot do it while raging. Okay.
So many
classic
things.
barbarian weakness. They just can't.
So this is a great Pathfinder 2, one of those
I
gotcha.
can't intimidate.
Yeah, so Pathfinder Ready does have the concentrate tag, so you cannot do it
So
when
thanks for
raging.
listening, Bob, but you're out.
Yeah.
every time I see
Disregard a lot of that.
every time I see a raging barbarian, I'm like, that ain't intimidating. That's a bunch of bull.
All he can do is delay.
Oh, it's all talk.
Right, he
It's
can
all
delay.
talk.
Well, no,
He can't ready, though.
But here's the best part. Ready? A raging barbarian cannot ready an action. So in other words, they can't sit there and go, all right, I'm going to wait. And then,
I mean, that
can't
makes
wait.
sense
Yeah.
mechanically.
Okay.
Or
but,
Thematically.
which by the way means they can't spend 2 actions to ready. So say like they're going to go, I'm going to ready that when this guy comes around the corner, I'm going to pull the lever and drop the trap on him. Can't do that.
Too raged.
Too rage, can't do that. But you can aid. You can spend 1 action and say, I'm going to ready, or I'm going to prepare an aid. And when he attacks, I'm going to attack with him in order to assist his attack. That does not have the concentrate tag.
Okay.
So you can,
Excellent.
which by the way, what does aid look like? You spend 1 action on your turn to, as a reaction, give somebody else a boost. So as you can see, initiative can be really, really important to the flow of a battle, how you use your buffs, your abilities, and how you assist and aid with your, fellow party members. Ready is a great action to not only be able to do the, a strike in a tactical position, but it's also how you do the classic, I'm going to throw the switch, as the enemy comes around the corner. I'm going to drop the mouse trap on them. I'm going to fling open the pit trap. I'm going to release the bombs that I place with demolition charge, right? Mm-hmm. All of those things are great uses for the ready action. And also, while it should be noted, you can only ready a single action. So while most spells cannot be readied, you could ready something like a focus spell or something that otherwise just takes 1 action. So that could also be something. Now, again, I think ready gets overused, and I think delay gets underused. Delay, you do not lose any actions. You're still going to get your full 3 just later in the round. Ready, you're eating up an action because you're using 2 actions to be able to do 1 action, and it's eating up your reaction. You're really paying the price to ready.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I think it is beneficial to just say, look, this isn't basic D&D. People don't have 4 hit points anymore, right? Like if the enemy gets to go first, but it's a huge tactical advantage for you and your party to go later, they're not going to one-shot you,
Yeah.
like in
I
one
think
blow.
that outweighs the going first.
Right.
Having the optimal setup
Right.
and how you're going to do your turn outweighs, we just got to hit him first.
Exactly. Right. Because it's not who hits first.
It's who hits biggest.
No, it's who
Who
kills
hits
them.
last?
Thank you, Tim.
I don't know why it's so hard,
You got to switch one of the words.
Maybe it's a new thing.
It's who doesn't get hit first.
All right. We'll try that again. Because it's not who hits first.
It's who hits last.
And that's exactly right. And as we've said before here on the Nightlife, the best status in the game is
dead.
There you go.
I knew that one.
And the best way to get people dead is to throw a bunch of debuffs on them and then let the rest of your party just wail into them mercilessly before they have any chance to get rid of them. And that is definitely the name of the game. And
That's
delay will help you do that, and ready can help you do that to a certain extent.
Love it.
Yeah, I think it goes out to the youth as well, who's looking for lifestyle advice. Just like don't be aggressive and go for it now. Just delay and just
know where that was going.
You'll get to it later. You'll do it later.
Dr.
Do it
Phil
tomorrow.
does.
Now, be aware that, depending on your table, you may not have exact knowledge of what the, monster's, initiative order is, and you may not know every aspect of the game of exactly what people's initiatives are. But even still, going first when at least you know what your party members' initiatives are. So you can at least plan around that. And the last thing that you want to do, and I'm sure we've all done it here, where you cast a spell or use a skill check to inflict some sort of debilitating condition on an enemy, and you're like, yeah, and then the enemy just immediately goes.
That's the weakest.
And then you're like, oh, okay, that actually didn't do anything.
Yep.
All right.
Feels bad.
Feels bad.
Feels real bad.
And there's also times to not delay, like we talked about at the beginning of the video, like when you want to really throw off that big fireball before the game, you know, or a chance to recall knowledge so that you can learn about it. Or if you have a ranged weapon out, you want to get those shots off before everybody gets all mixed up into melee, and there's all sorts of, you know, covers providing bonuses.
I would think if you could like stun them or something also that would help, because then their turn they're barely even using anything.
Sure.
So it's almost like their turn didn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, this is not really quite the same order, but you know, you could also though imagine a scenario where there's a monster and like the spellcaster goes, "Haha, I'm going to stun them," and you're like, "Okay, well, now that guy's not coming to me, which means I have to spend all my actions to come to it." Like, I'd rather you stunned it after, because he's still going to lose the actions, but this way I didn't have to waste any actions. He did,
right?
And again, that can be a huge reason. Striding does not give you anything, right? Stride is you're using it because you're either fleeing and you don't want to get hit, or you have a big powerful attack and you need to be closer to hit with it. So it's kind of a wasted action. So let the enemy use it. And if there's not a reason for you to otherwise to do it, I say let the enemy come to you. You know, I think that is a huge benefit. Unless you're a spellcaster, in which case go first, throw your fireball, and then back up.
Right. And then if they still manage to close melee with you, dimension door to the other side of the battlefield. That's my strategy.
It's a bit of a higher level strategy, but
yeah, you know.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Combat and Tactics. I enjoy reading all of your feedback. Some people point out some really great things. I was not aware of the gill hook spear, which apparently is a weapon that has both reach and grapple, and that seems so broken to me, I can't even really conceptualize it. Thank goodness it's an uncommon, weird ancestry weapon for like one fishing village on some island somewhere in Galarian.
They were talking about if you got grappled by it, like what do you do? Like, because you can't hit them. Yeah, so like, are you hitting the weapon?
It's weird that all my characters are from that island, though, isn't it? Like, wow,
strange.
Yeah, strange. Just it's a whole. I play a whole family bloodline.
Tune in next week as we venture to an island with just fishermen, and Derek's going to wreak havoc on us.
Yeah,
was it Turtleback Ferry?
That's right. Turns out, by the way, that the best weapon that was ever created by humankind and elfkind and dwarfkind came from this random fishing village and was used for spearing sharks. But
works on ogres too.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty good weapon. But my thoughts on that will be saved for another video.
Yes.
Yeah. Join the Discord. You could talk to us about it there.
Oh, I'm sure the Discord's going to hear all about it.
Oh
absolutely,
for sure.
Yeah, so feel free to leave a like, leave a comment below. Let us know what we missed or what you think about initiative and how you use it in order to enhance your battle tactics in the game. And of course, if you want to support this channel, please go ahead and check out our Patreon. We've got a couple different tiers, a couple different levels. We have a Discord. We're trying to build towards something bigger, greater. We've got some Patreon live streams that are exclusive for our patrons. So check us out below. It's in the doobly-doo. And other than that, I think we're going to sign off.
Oh, yeah.
All right. On behalf of the Knights, I am Derik Malenda saying welcome to the Knights of Last Call.